Pretty
This
similar
meeting
demo
is being
last week,
recorded.
as Sarah mentioned, but we're going to slow it right down and we're going to break it down into the different parts, you know, getting started, scheduling a meeting, joining a meeting, how to control the class, how to do things like whiteboarding. So yeah, like Rocco said, just leave questions as we go in the chat and I'll try and address them as we do the demo. And you'll also have to excuse me because I'm working from home as well, and you might hear dogs barking and that kind of thing. Anyway, let's move on. So I'm going to share my screen here so you can see exactly what I'm doing on my laptop. Now, you can see that now, Rocco?
Yep, we can see that.
Great. So what I recommend that everyone does, if they haven't done it already, is jump onto educationwa.webex.com. So this is the Department of Education's kind of WebEx homepage. And once you get there, you have the option to sign into your account on the top right-hand side here. So when you do that, when you sign in, you want to be using your Department of Education email address and password. Okay. Now, once you're in there, I'm going to log into my portal so you can have a look at what you'll find. So that's just loading up now. Okay. You're going to be greeted with your own personal kind of space here where you know, you got the ability to start your own personal room, just like today we're in Rocco's personal room. Everyone who has a WebEx account has their own personal room that basically that link there never changes, right? You can send that to someone, you can email it to them, they can click on that and they can join your meeting immediately.
I can't make this smaller, dude.
Okay, so now we're logged in here. Probably what you might want to do is pre-download the client onto your desktop, right? So that means that the first time you join a WebEx meeting, it's going to be super quick just to start that. So go ahead and jump into downloads and download the WebEx Meetings desktop app if you haven't already. And once you download that, you get the app which looks like this. And it's going to ask you when you first install it, what is your WebEx site name? And again, your WebEx site name is going to be educationwa.webex.com. Okay. Then once you sign in, you get this screen here. So this is a little companion app which sits on your desktop. You know, it syncs with your calendar so that I could potentially schedule meetings from here. But we'll go into a little more detail on how we schedule and how we join these meetings. Okay, cool. So now that everyone's logged in for the first time, you know, downloaded the application, the way I really like to schedule meetings is through the calendar. So if I open up the calendar here, this is the regular Outlook calendar, right? Which I believe all of the staff at Department of Education have this. And you should also be able to see a little Outlook plugin for WebEx in your Outlook. So when you create a meeting, just to be clear, not a regular email, it's a meeting out of your calendar. You have the ability to, for example, I can add my personal room details in here. So when I clicked that, what actually happened was all of the details that you see here automatically populated into the email. Now this gives people lots of different ways to join the meeting. If you're coming in from a laptop, all they have to do is click that big green join button. You know, if maybe they don't have a good internet connection or they just want to join by a phone, they can do that here. If you've you're lucky enough to be sitting in front of a video conferencing system, this is the address that you'd type into that video conferencing system. Okay, so lots of different ways to join. For most people, it's just going to be this big green join button. So your next step is to, invite the people that you want to get into your class. So you could do it individually, student by student, or you could potentially have the parents in there as well if they didn't have student email addresses. Now the next question that we commonly get is, all right, I don't want to have to type that in every single time, every student in my class. So what a good way of getting around that is by creating a group. So in Outlook, you can have groups. So I've created a test group here, and within that group, you can have multiple people automatically included in that group. Right. It's really easy to create groups. The way I did it is in Outlook, I just went to new items at the top left here, more items, and I created what's called a contact group. And then I just added in all the students into that group. Okay, any questions on the chat yet, Rocco?
Not as of yet, just some are just flowing through now. But Justin, I do have one question, is on the previous meeting we've had, the teachers have asked if they don't have an email address, how can they provide the meeting details to their students?
Great question. So the meeting link that sits behind this big green join button, it's the same link that you'll find, from the portal, which I showed you before. Let me just log back in there. So it's the same URL that you find here. We can just hit copy from here, or if you've got the app installed, you can grab that same URL just from here as well. And there's a little copy button. I hit that. What happens if I, let's say, go into Microsoft Word and paste that? That's going to be my meeting link address. You can send that out any way that you can think of. So, for example, if you can send a message in the Connect platform to your students, you may just want to copy and paste that in there, or even via SMS. Right? As long as they can get that link, then they can join. Now,
So just
yep.
one of the that will come in through is how do I get the Outlook button? And also if I join Outlook via the web, how do I get that button as well?
Okay, so the Outlook button, as far as we know, has been automatically propagated to all of the Department of Education PCs. So if you're using a Department of Education PC, it should already be there. Now, if you don't see it, you can actually download it yourself, right? Out of this downloads section from within educationwa.webex.com. It's called the Cisco WebEx Productivity Tools. And as you can see in the description, it allows you to schedule and start meetings directly in Microsoft Outlook. Okay, any other questions, Rocco, before I move on?
The other question was, am I able to raise hand, ask questions as I've seen in the other events at the moment versus now that it's not in this event?
Yeah, great question. So within WebEx meetings, as you'll see, WebEx meetings is the most basic type of meeting that we have. So we're pretty limited in some of the advanced classroom features, but there's another expansion module called Training Center, which we'll talk about at the end, but I just want to get you guys familiar with the basic meetings first before we jump on to the more advanced stuff. That's all right. So what we're going to do now is show you what the actual meeting looks like. So let's just say I've sent this out to all the students. Now, by the way, students don't need an account. As long as they've got this link, they can join in as a guest. All they do is put a name and an email address, and that's just used as an identifier for that student. So when they click on it, it's going to automatically join the meeting, like you've probably seen this morning. Now, first thing that I usually like to do is make sure that these settings are correct. If you've got multiple, maybe you've got a headset, make sure your headset's selected here under the speaker and microphone setting. And if you've got multiple cameras like me, you make sure you've selected the right camera. Once you've done that, you can just hit Start Meeting, and it's going to load WebEx meetings. Great, so once we're in here, most of the controls are based down the bottom here, right? And one of the most common kind of control that you're going to be looking for is the participants menu. This is where we've got the capability to, I can stop someone's video, I can mute them, I can mute everyone, as Rocco probably did this morning. I can allow someone to share their screen, or I can stop them from sharing their screen. All the kind of basic controls are here in the participants menu when you right click on someone. Okay, now if you want to change some more of the overall controls of the meeting for everyone, I'm going to go up into the top left-hand corner of the meetings menu and go options. I can change some of the things like allowing students to turn on their video or not. I can disable the chat. I can disable file transfers and that kind of thing.
So Justin, one of the questions was, can we time limit the meeting, or how do we manage that in that regards?
Yeah, so for example, if we're using a personal meeting room like we have here, the meeting will only run if I'm in there, because I'm the host. I own this personal meeting. As soon as I leave, it's going to end the meeting for everyone. Now, if you wanted to pass the host role to someone else, you could. Let's say you're having a problem with your audio and you wanted to restart your PC quickly, but you wanted the class to continue. I can right click on someone and I can change them to the host, and then I can leave, and then I can come back again. Right, so it's very important that within this type of environment that the host stays in the meeting, and that's purely for security purposes. Right? We don't want people to be able to join your meeting without you, because that's insecure. So that's the participants menu. Some of the options you can do. Let me just explore some more common options that you'd be using. So sharing content, this is really important, right? So if you want to share anything from, a PowerPoint presentation to a video to a whiteboard, it's all contained here within this share content screen. Okay. I can also, for example, share a file like a PDF for students to download. I can do that from here as well. But let's just start with the most common, the most common thing that I do on a day-to-day basis is just share my screen, because I really just want to share a PowerPoint presentation or a website. So I'll just go and share my entire screen. Now, if I wanted to share a video, just take note of this little option button up here. When I share, I can optimize that for really clear text and images, or I can optimize it for motion and video. So when I hit that motion and video button, it also shares the sound from your computer. So if I was, say, for example, going to share a YouTube clip, I would definitely want to go and select optimize for motion and video, and then that should allow you to share your audio as well. Question there, Rocco?
Here, one of the questions was how can I share my display my profile picture opposed to a live stream or a camera shot?
Oh, that's easy. That's easy. So all that literally is you see this video button, start my video, stop my video. That controls whether you put your actual video from a webcam or you just come up as a profile picture. And that profile picture, you can select that within your web portal at educationwa.webex.com. That allows you to upload that profile picture that's going to be used as an alternative to your video. Okay.
And Justin, one of the other questions was, how's the functionality work from an iPad?
Okay, very good question. Now, with iPad, I would be very comfortable for you to suggest that your students use iPads. However, what you're going to miss out from in an iPad is all of these advanced controls, all these meeting options. I personally believe that iPad is better used for a student rather than a teacher. If at all possible, you could join this from a laptop, a Mac or a PC. That would be my preferred choice, so you can actually control what's going on in the class. Okay, so let's move on to, let's continue on the sharing, because I think this is really important. Down the bottom of the share menu, this is where I get to access the whiteboard. Now, this was a really hot topic on our previous sessions. So I'm going to hit Start Whiteboard. You've got all the whiteboard controls down here. And, I can start drawing something if you want. Yellow is probably not a great color for you to be able to see that. So you've got all the basic kind of controls, right? So I can do shapes, squares, ovals. I can do lines. I can use text. So I can do text. I've got an eraser. And you've also got this kind of arrow pointer. So, or even a laser pointer. So I wanted to just show you guys what I was talking about. I'm going to use this laser pointer to point out, here's the sections that I want you to be looking at. This is also a good one. The arrow pointer, you can let your students basically use their arrows and show you what they're clicking on. So basically there's a little button at the top here called Allow Annotation. So if you've got a bunch of students in here and you want them to be able to draw or do arrows, etc., you'd have to click this top button. At the moment, there's no one in the meeting, so you can't see that as an available option. But then students could go and, draw on here and do arrows and things like that. At the end of that, I can create multiple whiteboards. I can name these whiteboards. So this is maths problem. And then I want to go and do another whiteboard. So I'm going to go down to the share menu again. And this is going to be called English whiteboard. And you can flick back and forth between the different whiteboards. You can save these. So right down the bottom left here, you've got that save option, and you can save that as a PDF, for example, on your desktop. Let's say I want to make the whiteboards disappear from the screen. I have to come up here and I actually have to click the X and say, yes, I want to remove it. No, I don't want to save it. No, I don't want to save it. Okay, now you're back to like a blank canvas with just video.
So Justin, one of the questions was, can you just show how you get to whiteboard again?
Yeah, no worries. So the whiteboard is available from this little bottom menu here. You see that little up arrow? That's the share content button. And everything's available from in here. I have to scroll down to the bottom and find new whiteboard. Okay. All right, so that's sharing content. That's a really important part of meetings. Another very important component is the recording function. So, you know, that icon's pretty self-explanatory. As soon as I hit record, it's going to record this meeting. All the students get an auditory and a visual cue to see that this is being recorded. If there's a part of the recording I want to pause, I can, and then resume at a later point. Then I can just stop that recording. Now, by default, the recording, there is a few settings here, right? I can do either record it to the WebEx portal, so your personal educationwa.webex.com portal, or I can record locally to the computer if you wish. Either options will allow you to save it to your desktop at a later date. So even if I record to cloud, yeah, I can go and then download that later and perhaps upload it to something like Connect for students to be able to get a copy of that. Okay, so that's recording. Did we get any questions on recording yet, Rocco?
The question was just in regards to, is there a difference between the recording button on the bottom versus the recording button on the top?
Not really. I mean, the difference up here is that we've got the settings, whereas down the bottom here, it's just a matter of starting or stopping.
And Justin, how long does the recording stay within my WebEx portal? Is there a time duration?
Look, there's not a time duration, but you do have a limit of 10 gigabytes per user. So look, that can be a couple of weeks worth of recordings. After you reach, you know, a certain threshold, I think it'll give you a warning to say you need to go and clear out some of your old recordings. And let me just show you that right now. So within your WebEx portal on the web, all your recordings kind of live here in this recording section. Now, you can see how long they went for, how big is the file size, download or share. When I click on one of the recordings, it'll actually load it up in the web page. So you don't have to send a huge file to someone. You can view it from here. And it's kind of like a YouTube clip, right? I've even got transcriptions. So I can see all the words that were said during the meeting. And I can even search that transcription. So where did we say password? We set it at 41 seconds into the meeting. Let's skip to there. I can also get a preview. See how I'm hovering over the progress bar? If someone was sharing their screen, for example, I'd be able to see what was happening at any point during that meeting. In this meeting, nobody's sharing, so we can't see that. You also have a film strip. of the teacher and the students if their video is enabled.
So Justin,
yep.
Some of the other questions were, can I let people in during the meeting?
Good question. So that, yes, by default, anyone can join unless you've locked your meeting. So the lock button, now I do recommend you use this day to day. If you're using a personal meeting room in particular, I would usually lock the meeting once all the students have joined. Now what happens at that point is when someone tries to join after your meeting's locked, I'm going to show you an example. So I'm going to join using my mobile device and you'll see what happens. All right, we're just joining now. Apologies for the delay. Okay, there you can see Steve is waiting in the lobby. It's because I've locked the room. If I want to admit him in, I can just hit admit and that allows him in. Okay.
Justin, I think you're on mute.
Apologies. Can you hear me now? My headset's being funny.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, as soon as I joined from my mobile device, my headset switched over. Okay, now where were we? So I was able to, you could see that I could admit that person into the lobby once the room was locked. So I admitted Steve. I can move him back to the lobby. Let's say he's a part of the next class and I'm not ready to take them in yet. I can move them back to the lobby at any time. I can also expel them. So I can kick them out if happened again, didn't it? Sorry. As soon as I admitted him into the meeting, it switched my thing over. All right. So when you've got multiple people in this meeting, you're going to have a little layout button at the top right here. So let's say there's 25 students. I want to be able to see all of them at the same time. You can switch to grid view up here. So there'll be a little button. It's not coming up for me now because there's only 2 people, but that will allow you to have a grid view of all of the students in the class at the same time. You may even be able to do this on the meeting now within your client, and you can experience that 5x5 grid view. Okay. Now just exploring the final features within the client. So the chat, obviously it's open for everyone to chat with each other, or I can chat individually to someone just by changing that kind of to field there. Or I can chat to everyone. It's a pretty basic chat in WebEx meetings. WebEx trainings has something called Q&A, which is more of a structured type of chat where you can respond individually to people's questions, and you can save that at the end and you can share the Q&A with everyone in the class.
Now, one of the questions is, can we send someone a code mid-meeting? What you do is, Justin will show you, you can send the link. The link is basically the address to your personal meeting room. So it's just the way people can find to get to your room. Now, if you've locked a room, Justin showed you how they'll appear and you can admit them and let them in. But you can send that link at any time to any participants that want to join your class.
Correct. And if you've forgotten it, even within the meeting here, the 3 little dots, you can see the copy meeting link. I can then go and paste that. As you can see, it's the exact same link that we saw before. So that never changes.
So the other question was, if I have previous participants, can they automatically have them in new meetings moving forward? Will they auto-populate in a new meeting moving forward?
Yeah, so the answer to that is no. I typically control that using your calendar, right? So yes and no. So the way you might want to do something like that is if I create a meeting with my class and I add my personal room, if you wanted to have this as a recurring meeting, I'd use Outlook to do that, right? Let's say this happens weekly on Tuesday at 9:30. I'm going to use the recurring meeting function within Outlook to actually do that. Now, while we're here, what I might also mention is personal room is nice and easy to use because the link never changes, right? It's always going to be, you know, just Kelly. So my username is going to be in that meeting invitation, right? Now, if I wanted to have multiple overlapping meetings, I probably wouldn't use that. I'd probably use a regular scheduled WebEx meeting. The difference is you can set things like, you know, different passwords. I'm just going to hit OK. When I send that out, the difference is you don't see it straight away. And that's because it generates a new meeting ID every single time. So I'm going to say test meeting. I'm going to send that off. Now, just before that email closes, you'll see that that's been populated. And when I go back into it, you will see this is sorry about the dog in the background. This is a unique meeting number every single time. So that allows you to potentially have overlapping meetings, whereas your personal meeting room, obviously there's only one address for it, so you can only have one of those going at any one point in time. Okay.
So Justin, bearing in mind that we've only got 20 minutes left, do you want to go through a bit about Training Centre and what the differences are between meeting and Training Centre?
Absolutely. Okay. So let me go back here. Just before we close out on regular meetings, you've got polling. So this is related to some of the training functions, right? So we've got a basic polling feature in here. So I can, to all the people in this meeting, I can do either a short answer poll, a multiple choice. In this case, I'm going to do a short answer. Say, what did you think of the book? And that poll is going to go to all of the students. Now I can set options like, you know, 5 minutes for them to be able to answer the question. And all I have to do is hit open poll. What that's going to do is all of the students, and it's going to be hard for you to kind of see this, but all of the students are going to have that poll pop up on their screen, and they've got 5 minutes to answer it. You can see down here the timer is counting down. So I'm going to respond to the poll on my mobile device. And now I'm going to close the poll because we've had everyone respond. You can see down here the polling status. Now I can share the results. So I can share it with all the other students, right, by hitting that poll results. And what will happen, hopefully, is it's going to pop up with a web page screen. We have to save that. Save the poll. Here we go. So the poll results come in either via a text file or a web page. And you can see if I find the poll results on my desktop here, Steve said it was great. Right, so you got all your results there. Okay, so that's polling. That basically is the entirety of all the features within WebEx Meeting Center. If that is not enough control for you guys, I want to end that.
So while Justin's just ending that, what you'll find is that polling is also available in Training Center as well as Meeting Center. And to find that polling, as Justin showed you before, it's the little button with the 3 dots where it has all the different options. Polling is available in that as well.
Yep. Now I recommend you guys do exactly what I did, right? Go and download the app, go and hit start a meeting, or go and click on your own meeting link. You don't need to invite anyone. You can just sit in there on your own, test it out. Like, you can't break this. That was one of the most common questions that we got. How do we practice? So just jump in, start a meeting, and start playing with all the menu items. If you want, if you're brave, you can join in. You can download the app on your iPhone and you can simulate a student just like I did then. Or you can invite a colleague and you guys can just work together and get familiar with the platform. So as easy as that. Okay, so if we want to get a little more advanced into the controls, what we want to do, jump into educationwa.webex.com. Down the bottom left-hand side here, we've got WebEx training. What you can do from here, it takes you to a little more of an advanced portal. And you can do scheduled training. And within here, this is, as you can see, it's a lot more structured, right? It's asking me, what's the topic? This is maths year 9. I've got a password which I can change. I've got a lot of options here. Things like, do I want students to register so I can keep a track of attendance before they even join? Here I can invite attendees, or alternatively, I can just forward the email to myself. So send a copy of the attendee invitation to me, and I can then forward it via email to the others instead of using the kind of clunky tool here where it's going to be a bit more onerous for you to enter in every single student's email address. I can have multiple teachers. So imagine opening this up to multiple year groups, having a big group of 100 or 200 students. I can have multiple presenters. Me and Rocco could take turns in presenting. for example. And then you can pre-set up some of the options. So there's really advanced things like, look, I don't want students to be able to see each other's video thumbnails. I can disable some of that stuff here, or I can just turn off video altogether. I can turn off chat. I can have really granular controls on whether I want people to be able to annotate or draw on top of the whiteboards, save the documents. In case I only want them to view them, I can disable that. So I would basically have a play around with some of these options here. Alternatively, you can just leave it all as default. And when we're in the meeting, that's when we can toggle some of these things as well. Breakout sessions. This is really interesting for group work. So if you have a class full of 30 people and you want to break them off into 6 groups of 5, what I can do is enable this breakout sessions area. So, I can either pre-specify who's in the groups, or I can just do an automatic assignment. I just want random people to be a part of these groups. And I can set the number of breakout groups. So we're saying 6 groups of 5, or I can do it for the number of attendees that I want to set per session. So I only want 5 people in each breakout session. Either way. So as you can see, guys, there's a lot of options here for you to play around with. Most of the time, you can just leave the defaults, leave the default settings. Or if you do make some settings that you like, just save it as a template, and you can always bring that up really quickly and easily later. Was there any questions on the scheduling part, Rocco?
No, most people were just asking what's the benefits of meetings, trainings, or events.
Okay, yep. So, I mean, the obvious one, the benefit to WebEx meetings is it's really easy to schedule. And you can literally get a WebEx meeting going just by clicking one button. Training Center, you'd want to kind of get familiar with some of the more advanced features. And I'd probably say breakout sessions is a key here, along with Q&A and testing, right? So all the way down here, I can add tests to a training center session. You can see there's plenty of tests that are pre-generated here. So you can do testing, you can do breakout sessions, and you've got more control over the students. And I'll show you that in a moment when I start the training session. So I've already scheduled one. At least I thought I did. Let me check my email, or I can just hit start session. That's going to load up very similar to a regular WebEx meeting. And you can notice it's a slightly different kind of interface, right? So call and use a computer, it's going to connect me to the audio. I'm just going to leave that for now because I want to talk to you guys instead of this session. Now this is where you've got all of your attendee options, right? You can assign privileges to the attendees. So a very common question was, how do we stop the attendees from viewing each other in the attendee list? You can disable that. I only want the students to be able to see how many other students. I don't want them to actually be able to see who else is in the class. And I can also set whether or not we can show the video thumbnails or the names of the student thumbnails. So there's a lot of options you can do here. I can disable video. I can allow students to share their content, or I can disable that access through this type of control here. Now I can do granular controls over whether the students can chat with each other or only the host or the presenter. So so if I've got all attendees can chat with each other, you can imagine students may be getting distracted with the chats between themselves, or you may want to encourage that. It's really up to how you want to run the session. And then we've got some of the, you can just allow all privileges if you like, using that button here.
So Justin, one of the questions is this through the app or the browser that you're showing at the moment?
So I've launched into the app already. So this is Training Center. Now what I might do is bring in a student. So I'm gonna invite a student here. Normally you wouldn't do it this way. Normally you'd send it through Outlook. But I'm just doing it quick on the fly at the moment. Maths Year 9, that's the one. I'm going to join in from my mobile. And hopefully my audio doesn't flick over again. Okay, cool. So Steve's now in the meeting. So I'm joined from my iPhone here. Now, what I can do, at the moment, Steve's not allowed to share his video. Now, if I right click on attendee privileges and allow him to send his video, what you'll see in a moment is Steve's video will start. There we go. Steve's popped up there. So this is what I was saying with Training Center having a lot more features in terms of controlling the classroom. So again, I want to stop video, I can do that. Right. Things around muting. So if I mute all in Training Center, that's a hard mute. People cannot unmute their audio from Training Center. Whereas in Meeting Center, it's a little more flexible. You trust the people a bit more to be able to mute and unmute themselves using a bit of meeting etiquette. We know students do not always have meeting etiquette, so we want to have more control. That's when I might use Training Center instead.
So Justin, can we grab a copy of the attendance in Training Center or Meeting Center?
Absolutely, you can. So where you do that is from the web portal, so educationwa.webex.com. It's a little bit tricky. You have to switch over to classic view at the top right here, because we're in the middle of kind of, making this more user-friendly. What I need to do is go to my WebEx, and I've got my reports down here. And apologies if I've kind of moved through this really quickly, but this is where, as long as you can find classic view, my WebEx, my reports, I've got usage information for all of my meetings. Let's just do a report here. This is more of an overall kind of summary at the top here. If you want more detailed reports, I can hit detail there. If you want attendance, I believe down the bottom here, we've got Here we go. So registration report, attendance report. We can access that all from the reporting section. So this is my meeting here. We can see some of the attendants that have joined.
And Justin, is there a difference between a Mac and a Windows user?
No, really the difference between Mac and Windows is very, very minimal. So for example, at Cisco, approximately 50% of the people use Mac, like Rocco, and the other 50% use Windows, like me. So there's not a big difference. Okay. So look, we won't spend too long on Training Center, but what I will say, someone asked the question before, how does a student raise their hand? This is how they do that from Training Center. So if you've muted everyone, but you want them to ask a question, if they raise their hand, I can individually go and unmute that person and allow them to speak. Right. You've also got other little icons like yes or no. Hey students, what do you think? Do you agree with this? Yes. You can see a little tick pop up. Or no, a little cross. And we've also got some basic kind of emojis as well. Clap hand, etc. Now this is interesting. We've got something called attendance or attentiveness indicator. So if your students are, if they're off browsing video games while your class is on, you've got an indication here of whether or not they've got Training Center in the foreground of their computer or in the background. So that's what the attentive indicator will show you. So on top of that, things like Q&A and breakout sessions, you can access the breakout session menu from the top here. So I can start assigning people to sessions, whether it be manually or automatically. In this case, it's automatically. Set the number of people in each session, hit OK, and it will go and distribute the class into different sessions. Me as the teacher, I can pop into each individual breakout session and tutor them. And then at the end of 20 minutes or however long you might think, let's break it all back out into one big session and all the students can share their findings that they researched within the breakout session. That's quite handy.
Thanks, Justin. Just to clarify some of the last questions, one of the questions was having a few issues with attendance accuracy. What we'll do is I'll take that back and just check and clarify the differences are. Secondly is there's icons these icons available in meetings? No, most of those icons are specific to Training Center. So the Training Center has a different functionality and features. Can you see individual student names as well? Justin, can you see these individual student names on there?
Absolutely, you can. So anyone who's a part of the teaching group, which are the panelists or the hosts or the organizers, can see all of the attendees. So here I can see Steve, and I'll be able to see a full list of all the students in there.
And
did you mute, Rocco? I can't hear you anymore.
sorry, the last one is also, can we monitor if students are getting distracted or not?
Yeah, you can. So that's the attentiveness indicator. So the little exclamation mark here. Just to run through what that does again. If a student has the class or the WebEx application in the foreground of their computer, they're considered to be attentive. if they're off browsing, the web, there you go. So what I've just done, let me demonstrate how that works. If you can see my little video up here, I've just gone to the browser on my phone and it's shown that I'm inattentive. Whereas on my phone, if I go back to WebEx, which I've just done now, it's switched it over to being attentive again.
And just one final one, just in regards to students, seeing each student's name, do you have to click on each individual student, or can you see them all together?
No, so it's the reason you don't see a big list of names here is because there's only Steve. He's the only student here. If you had multiple students, that all pop up along this list here in the participants menu. So that would expand just like that, and you'd see them all down here.
So everyone, thank you for your time today. We are running some regular sessions over the next couple of days, and Cisco will be running generic sessions over the next few weeks. What I'll do is I'll probably hand over back to Sarah. And Sarah, if you've got any final words.
Just one question that I've had a couple of people email and text me about is what is the best, what should schools be telling parents? Should they be downloading WebEx meetings onto their machines?
So yep, Justin?
I would say it's not necessary because as soon as they click that meeting link, the big green join button, it automatically goes and downloads a client. Like it'll download either a browser plugin, or you can even load it in the browser, or it'll automatically download a client. So it's not necessary to actually get them to preload any applications.
There's no, there's nothing they need to do before they get that link.
Not at all. Just click the link, and first time they do it, it'll take about 2 minutes to go and download that.
And I do believe there is some links on our site as well, specifically around parents as well. So that's up on our site at the moment. So look, just thank you very much, Justin and Rocco. That was really, really informative. This recording will be put up on our site, so you can share it with your colleagues. And the other resources that I've mentioned, they're up on the site under WebEx recordings right now, and that's where you'll find this as soon as I get the recording. Once again, on behalf of Solutions IT, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.